So Tim, maybe you've heard of this before, and maybe you haven't. But you probably want some more proofs or things. I know that you hadn't believed it before because you mentioned about planets, and you mentioned about planets the other day when we talked. And there are no planets. What you see is a ball of light, just like the stars. If you look into this issue, when you look at stars, you get a telescope or look on YouTube. People that have taken pictures like I have. When you look at a star, it's just a ball of light with all these different colors and different shapes changing. Probably the stars are angels. Planets are wandering stars. The Book of Enoch talks about them. They're probably fallen angels that have a different course because they went out of their normal course. But they don't look like what you see, the CGI pictures that they show us from NASA. They look like less defined than that. But what they are is they're dots of light. And yes, Saturn has some type of rings. But other than that, it's not what they say. What other issues could I talk about? There's so many. One thing a gyroscope, the way gyroscopes work, that's something to look into. An airplane has a gyroscope and it keeps the airplane going flat. Airplanes go straight according to their attitude indicator. And if they were going straight, especially a high-speed jet, then if they'd have to be always pointing down, for the curve of the Earth. Otherwise, they'd go out into space. The thing to always come back to is remember you got to get grounded in the idea that water is always flat, and you can see 50 miles across. In my testimony video, it talks about that picture across Lake Michigan to Chicago, which that really affected me because I grew up there in Chicago. I could see the Sears Tower from my house 20 miles away. And so this guy took a picture 40 miles away, and you could see the skyline, which it should have been like really below. The new thing is this guy, he's taken infrared pictures, so you can see through the haze. You can see through the haze in the clouds a lot better. And he's taken 100, 200, 300, 700, the longest distance, 1,200 miles away that he can see. That would be impossible if the Earth was curved, if it was a if it was a big globe, a ball. When you look at the sunset on the water, you see the line of light comes straight from the sun. It's like a straight line. If the Earth was curved, then that wouldn't be like that. They would be like all spread out. It wouldn't be a single line. There's so many things that all fall into place. Yeah, the thing about the sun, how does the sun set? It goes down. Another important thing is to look at its perspective. Think about when you're looking at down the road on an open road, which there aren't too many on the East Coast, but in the West Coast and here in Peru, there's lots of open roads where it's desert. And so you look at the telephone poles or a train track. The telephone poles, the telephone pole that's closest looks pretty tall. The next one's a little shorter. The next one's a little shorter. And so you get to the bottom, you get to as far as you can see, and you can't even see it. It's like a tiny little dot. So I think I have a video on that. I know I took a picture of a line of telephone poles. That has to do with perspective. So when you're looking across water, yeah, there's a little bit that you can't see at the other side. That's because you can't see. It works from the top and from the bottom. You can't the way your eyes work because your eyes are a lens, right? And so you can't see everything at the end of the distance that you're looking at there. So you got to look into perspective. Perspective has a lot to do with, well, why can't you see to China? People will say that. Well, you can't see to China. First of all, you can't even see through the haze with your regular vision, even with a regular camera for very far. And then because of perspective, you can't see, just like that example. When you look down a line of telephone poles, that you don't see the last one. There's the ending to it of what you can see. But if you get up in the airplane, you can see 1,000 miles with the infrared camera. So, any other little questions, just ask me, because I've pretty much heard all the arguments. So other difficult things. There's supposedly flights that go from South America to New Zealand. There's a couple of difficulties with that we haven't. The long distance flights don't have a complete answer for that. There's no exact map. Another thing to keep in mind is that no one has ever traveled across the South Pole in an airplane. No one has ever claimed. Well, a couple people maybe claimed, but there's no proof that they did it. That no one's ever flown across the South Pole. Imagine that. You got military jets with refueling tankers. They could fly anywhere in the world. They could fly all the way around. So the idea is the Earth is a flat disk, obviously with mountains and hills and things like that. And then around the edge is ice. That's what they call Antarctica. And then there's a dome. There's a firmament, and there's waters above the firmament, and God's throne is above the firmament. So there's lots of details. Whatever questions you have, just ask me. I'll, give you my best job. But there are a few difficulties. No one has an exact map of the Earth. No one knows exactly how wide the ice, the outside continent is. People call it an ice wall, but really there's land underneath that ice. So I don't call it an ice wall, but there's like this wall of ice, and you can't just travel there. There's a treaty that says that people can't just freely travel to Antarctica. You have to be like an approved group, and they don't take you. No one has ever traveled across Antarctica. Think about that. Why hasn't a military jet been able to travel across? Because there's a firmament. They can't. Lots of things. This wasn't meant to be an all-encompassing video with all the proofs, with the 200 proofs or things like that. There's lots of disinformation out there. There's lots of lots of flat earthers that are like against God or New Agers or whatever. But the truth is the truth, and I'm sure, Tammy, that you will find it. I look forward to hearing from you very soon.